Welcome to Between the Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I'm a publisher at Red Penguin Books, where we publish books of all types and genres. So whether you have a book in your head or a manuscript ready to go, or even 400 sheets of loose leaf shoved in a drawer, and believe me, at least once a month, we get an envelope full of loose leaf. Visit us at redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. I'm so excited to be joined today by three authors who have unbelievably unleashed themselves. Jan Foster is the author of Disrupting Destiny, the Naturae series, and you're just going to love meeting and hearing all about that. Kimberly Wilkerson joins us as the author of Kingdom of Grace. Oh, I want to be there right now, that's for sure. And then finally, Danielle Orsino is the author of the Birth of the Fae series. We have Locked Out of Heaven, Thine Eyes of Mercy, and From the Ashes. But first, meet Jan Foster, the Disrupting Destiny series. It's the Naturae series, and she writes, Annabelle's secret destiny was never meant to come between them. But after a century of hiding in Tudor England, a violent confrontation with a shadowy figure from her past leaves her heartbroken and alone in a realm she hated. Once a mortal, when homebody Joshua loses Annabella, only his belief in her innocence and the kindness of strangers keeps him alive. In a dangerous quest through the turbulence of Reformation England to find his love, he thinks he only has to survive long enough to save her. But not everyone is what they seem, and he finds himself questioning his own faith as much as being a fae. Kept a prisoner, Annabella refuses to comply with the future envisaged for her until a darker secret threatens to destroy the realm and the fae immortality. The fate of an entire race rests on their shoulders. But can destiny be changed? Rebellion, danger, and intrigue threaten the future in a thrilling journey, weaving Tudor times with magical fantasy. Please welcome author Jan Foster. So thrilled to have you.
Hi, lovely to be here.
Oh, and I love fantasy and Tudor times all mixed up in one. Sounds wonderful.
It was a magical time.
It was a magical time. I was so fortunate, not just to be in England several times, but actually to go over to Glastonbury the last time.
Oh, that's interesting you mentioned Glastonbury, because funnily enough, the stones, not just, well, actually not Glastonbury stones, but stone circles feature quite heavily in my books.
Really?
Yeah. In the first one, Risking Destiny, which is a prequel, you realize that the stones in my world are actually used as a conduit for drawing the power out of humans by the Fae. So
yes, Glastonbury was a very special place. If there was any place that I've ever felt closest to the other realm, shall we say.
Interesting. Well, you should try the stones in Orkney. They're quite magical too.
Really? Oh, I've never been.
Yeah, they're older. Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming back then. I'm coming back. So tell me, how did you get started with this series? What inspired the whole thing?
Well, I was writing a children's book, and whilst that was being illustrated, which takes a lot of time, I realized that I wanted to do more writing, and my natural inclination is to go to history because I'm a little bit obsessed with Tudors. I'll be honest with you, always have been, always will be. I wanted to do something that was historical, but I just couldn't get this idea out of my head about having magical beings living amongst humans. And so it kind of started like that, really. I just started writing. And then the whole world, sort of, the more I delved into places and history and the what ifs, and I was particularly fascinated by those stones in Orkney, other stones as well. There's lots of stone circles, the idea of druids, the idea of, we don't really know what their purpose was. It could have been anything. So I decided to give it a purpose, and hence hence the theory was born, as it were. And then I wove in different activities within that Tudor century, or I continue to weave it in through the series, that are happening in human history, and see how that's reflected in my imaginary creatures that also inhabit the human world.
Yes, yes, I love this historical point of view that you went in from there, as opposed to, you know, you didn't have a dream and all of these, and everyone starts a book in a different way. You know, I can understand being in England. You have so much history. I mean, I got to walk around Hampton Court also. Talk about the Tudors.
Well, it takes you back when you go to places like that where you know they were built in those times. You can really feel what it must have been like, and I've always loved doing that. I've always loved going to castles and all these historic houses and just trying to imagine what it must have been like. And actually, when I was writing, I realized that what was important to me was to try and get over how I thought it might have been, what it was like to live as an ordinary person in Tudor times. So a great deal of my books don't cover the royalty side of it, because, you know, you can read a lot of books which talk about kings and queens and things like that, but what you don't get so much is what it was like for the ordinary man. So Disrupting Destiny was actually partly inspired by Brexit, strangely enough. Yeah, I know, you wouldn't think that, but at the time I was doing a lot of reading around the years of Anne Boleyn. Who doesn't love Anne Boleyn? What a controversial figure. But she was incredibly polarizing, and even more so when Henry VIII broke from Rome, because you then had suddenly two religions and not everyone was happy about it. Well, it was very similar for us in England with Brexit. We literally, as a country, were split 50-50. Literally 51%. It was that close. We had, you know, marriages breaking up over it. It was either a hot topic in households, or it was a topic that just couldn't be discussed. It was really quite difficult for a number of years, and continues to be in many ways. So that made me think, well, it must have been a bit like that in 1536 when King Henry just suddenly said, okay, well, I'm not Catholic anymore, apparently. And so you're all going to follow the church that I'm the head of now so that I can marry Anne Boleyn. It was polarizing, to say the least. I kind of knew how people might have felt then, because we were going through exactly that here in one way.
Right. You're the first person who's ever tied Brexit to Anne Boleyn, I must
say. No, I think it's unique.
And I live here in New York City, and right now on Broadway, a new musical called Six, which is,
it's brilliant, isn't it?
Oh my gosh,
it's really good.
But I definitely want to go and see the Six Wives of Henry VIII.
It's good.
Wow. So a fantasy series inspired by a love of the Tudors and Brexit. That is definitely not what I expected.
Not a love of Brexit. I should just point that out. It was just how polarized people were.
Right. Yes. Oh. No. Just the fact of Brexit. And you're absolutely right. And you know, it's funny. I heard that the day after that pivotal vote that came, the most Googled term in England was, what is Brexit?
It's scary, isn't it, really, how misinformed people can be?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I totally understand that. And there you are with the most polarizing thing that has happened since, like you said, Henry VIII, and so many people were completely misinformed. So that's quite a scary thing. And by the way, we have frightening things in America just the same way. So I know you know that. So now, well, is this a 3-book series? Is it done? Is there more? Did it come to a happy end?
It's actually the story arc covers the whole century of Tudor rule.
Okay.
So it's at least 4 books, possibly 5, and there's a prequel as well, another prequel to come, which is actually the love story. Because I realized actually I start from a point of view where my couple is already a couple, and their trauma is getting torn apart. So, and I'd written another prequel, which I did during NaNoWriMo, which was the villain's backstory, if you like, how she became bad, because nobody's born bad. So that's set in the Viking Age, and that's Risking Destiny. Wow. But some of my readers were coming back to me and going, yeah, but how did they meet? You know, you start and they've already been together for a century. They're already dealing with like mature relationship problems. Right. And I thought, yeah, you're right, actually. I probably should tell you how that happened. So that's the next book that will come later this year, hopefully.
Oh, I'm so glad that you did that. You know, I love and I so encourage writers to write prequels and backstories and character stories into a novella, and let's fill in the blanks here. You know,
well, if you've already thought of it, if you already know in your head, you just haven't necessarily put it into the book and explained it because you're starting from something else, then yeah, obviously people hopefully want to know what's really happened before, so they've got some context. So exactly. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Oh, absolutely. So you hear that for all of our viewers here. It looks like there's 3 books, but there's more.
Oh, yeah,
there's a few more on the way. So you better get started because more are going to be released. That's for sure. I do have one other question. Now, you mentioned that this whole thing started when you were kind of on, I'll say, hiatus from a children's book because of, you know, the production time, which is understandable.
Yeah.
How is the writing different? You know, like, how is your approach different?
It was, right, it's a different skill set almost. I wrote the children's book because at the time I was doing a lot of work in a school with it was actually my children's school, and I was reading with children. Mm-hmm. And I did this for a number of years, just while my children were growing up and, you know, going through the schooling system. And it kept occurring to me that what was missing for some of these children were books that were talking about new experiences that were modern. In England, we have very few picture books. There's a series called Topsy and Tim. There's the occasional book here and there. And a lot of the children I was reading with, sort of from the ages of 5 to 8, they were frightened in many ways. So that was how that came about. But when you're writing a children's book, you've got to be thinking in a different way about how you explain what the story is visually rather than in words. So that's my children's book.
Oh, look at that. Fabulous.
Which I didn't send you a picture of, but that's the children's book. But it's, you have to think about how much information you're giving them in the picture while you're writing the actual text of it, because they work together. And that's why it's important to make sure that when you're choosing an illustrator, you have a good relationship with them and they understand the vision for what you're trying to do and how you're trying to portray it. For me, it was made doubly complicated by the fact that my illustrator lives in Brazil.
Oh.
So yeah, great for international stuff. He was amazing. He totally got what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And it's also the book's comic book style. So it's got speech bubbles and it's written in dyslexia font as well, because it's trying to make sure that all children could read it as well as adults read it, as well as it being informative about new experiences. So it's quite a different mindset to then flip from one thing to, I can actually describe this with words. I don't have to think about making a note for my illustrator about what this picture needs to include and how it should feel, because I've got words. So it is, you have to have 2 hats on, I think.
Yeah, no, I get that. And so insightful. That's why I was wondering, since you've worn both hats. So it's so
it's tricky.
Well, that's fabulous. And our next guest on is also a children's author. So we're going to hear all about that hat per se. Kimberly Wilkerson is the author of Kingdom of Grace and writes, "A queen's journey begins when she leaves her comfort zone and shares the love she has with those willing and worthy to receive it, bringing abundance all around her kingdom." Oh, I got a chill up my spine just reading that. Please welcome author Kimberly Wilkerson. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, and thanks for being here. My goodness, that sounds lovely. And I want to hear all about writing of this book, the inspiration. What started this?
It's kind of funny because as I was listening to your previous author explaining how she went from children's into, I guess, noveling, I started writing thinking I was going to write a novel. And it didn't turn out that way. It really, I had to start picking things apart. And so for my first published material, it came out in children's. I found an illustrator, and it's very true that the way that you write is incredibly different, because you have to be more subtle about things. You need to not necessarily only speak to children. You need to speak to the adults as well, and because they're the ones purchasing it. So it's like almost a double-edged sword. You gotta sell to two generations of people.
We do.
Yeah, so it was challenging, and yet not at the same time, because it just came out. I was going through my own spiritual journey at the time, and it just needed to come out of me. And I think that it ended up being children's simply because I too was surrounded by kids, having my own son and trying to get him more incorporated with his peers, because he's very much a loner type of person. He doesn't really care to have a lot of friends. And, I think that having some friends is important. Having people in a community is important, and people to rely on, people to trust and have loyalty with. I also think that it's really important that we are having conversations with our children, especially at a young age, and allowing them to give their insight on what they see. And a lot of the times we don't give kids enough credit for what they see. We think we're hiding things from them. We think that, they're interpreting things one way, and they could be interpreting it in a completely different way. And we need to have that open communication. It's only going to do good for their futures and our relationships with them.
Absolutely. Kimberly, let me ask you a question. I see your website address is mylegacyforchristopher.com. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So I blog on a semi-regular basis. I'm sorry if I'm sweating. I'm sitting in the car. It is a hot day in California right now. I created the blog so that I could just keep putting things out there, whether it be about parenting, whether it be just poems, whether it be about things that are going on in society. And I really want to leave something for my son. I've been a single mom his entire life. He's going to be 18 this summer. And, I feel good about his future, as far as like he's, I know he's going to be okay regardless, because of my faith that I have. However, I also feel, regardless of the fact that I was a single mom raising a son, it's still my obligation to make sure that I do the best I can to leave him something that he can feel a little bit more secure in. So those times, because I'm not going to live forever. So the times that, as adults, we struggle and we need our parents. And what if I'm not there? He's going to have something to be able to get through that.
Wow, that's wonderful. And that's your blog then also, mylegacyforchristopher.com is where your blog is found.
Correct.
Fantastic. I love that. What's next on your writing journey? Of course, you're blogging, so that's a writing journey of its own.
It is. So ideally, the second book, which would be the continuation, because Kingdom of Grace is left on a cliffhanger. the second book will be out by the end of this year, before winter.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Oh, that's just amazing. So you are certainly busy with the blog and the books. How often do you blog? And this is just because so many people ask me, if I want to blog, what do I do?
Oh boy. So I gave myself some goals and I didn't reach them because I took on more work, side work and things, and I'm moving. Life really gets in the way if you don't calendar it.
No.
So I had given myself a goal of twice a week,
Okay.
and I didn't want to let myself down. So I took that out, and now at least every 2 weeks I'm blogging. So a couple times a month, just to continue being consistent.
Mhm.
And then once my move is finished and I have completed the publishing of the second book, then I might pick that up again and go back to 2 times a week.
Fantastic. And where are you moving to?
Texas.
Where in Texas?
We are going from California to Austin, Texas.
Oh, Austin, Texas. Wow. It's one of the fastest growing areas of this country right now.
It is. So we're getting in while the getting's good.
Yeah. The highways into Austin must be crowded because the population has been booming in Austin, Texas. That's for sure.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on the move and good luck. And when that second book comes out, please join us back here between the covers.
Absolutely.
Our next author is, well, she's already up to her third book and probably her third time here on Between the Covers, because that's my open invitation, is whenever you have a new book coming out. Danielle Orsino is the author of the Birth of the Fae series. We have Locked Out of Heaven, Thine Eyes of Mercy, and From the Ashes. And she writes of Thine Eyes of Mercy to give us a little bit of an overview. Queen Aurora of the Court of Light Fae and King Jarvok of the Court of Dark Fae are exhausted and battle-worn after centuries of fighting. The attrition has taken its toll upon their kin and power bases. What happens when you have to give in to your enemy? All wars eventually end, even magical ones. The dark and light fae have set their elemental magic and weapons down, but all is not quiet in the Vale. Thank God there are 3 books already, and I have a feeling there are going to be tons more in the Birth of the Fae book series, so we can learn more about Queen Aurora and King Jarvok. So please welcome author Danielle Orsino. So nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, always a thrill to have you. I've been fortunate enough to have you before, but I've never seen that headpiece before. Is that new?
This is my oracle headpiece, little dark fae for you. I always bring the light fae. I thought I'd bring a little dark fae today.
Ooh, is there a reason why we decided today was a dark day?
Just one of those things, figured I'd just throw it on. It's a Friday.
I love that. And love the book series. You are a cover artist, I see, on your book series.
Yes, I was very lucky. The Four Horsemen Publications decided to utilize my cosplay and throw me on the covers. And I'm very honored.
I'm just going to throw that up there. Well, especially with your current hair color, it looks like you've had all sorts of iterations. I'm not sure what color it'll be in book 4.
My father didn't even recognize me, so.
He didn't even recognize you. That's funny. That's just funny. I can't imagine what fun and what work it must have been to do these covers.
It was a lot of fun, but all the credit goes to my makeup artist, Denise Apostle, and my photographer, Julia Giulietti. They came together and helped me out tremendously. And all of us just worked beautifully to make these characters come to life, because without them, I would have just been hot glue gunning and crystalling things and hoping and praying, and it just would have been like a mess. So without them, would not have been possible.
Now, what came first, the cosplay or the fae? How did this all get its start?
The cosplay came first. My love of comic books came first, because I've been going to all the cons dressed up as Harley Quinn and Wonder Woman and Catwoman. Black Canary. I've been everybody. So that came first. And then eventually, just from doing fight scenes in my backyard when I was writing, then it was like, well, does a cape make sense? Let me put a cape on. Would this one wear this? Would this one do that? And then eventually it kind of turned into cosplaying as the characters to see if that would work in the fight scenes. And then it was like, well, I'm cosplaying as Wonder Woman, but why not be Aurora, or why not be Desdemona? And it just kind of evolved that way. And it did help my writing, I feel, because then you're embodying a character.
Absolutely, I'm sure. And where do you buy all these fabulous things? I mean, I don't see them in Target.
Etsy is a huge, I'm a huge Etsy fan.
Okay.
I have to go, you type in Faye on Etsy and you'd be surprised what shows up. I buy a lot of stuff on Etsy. The cosplay community helps out when I need stuff. And then I've had to teach myself a lot of acrylic and resin molding. When I did Jarvok for it'll be book 4, the cover of book 4, I did his armor. So I bought the leather armor, but then I had to make it King Jarvok. So I learned how to do resin molding, and I wound up buying ice cube molds.
Oh.
And using that to make the skulls. But then you have to learn painting and everything. So it's been a lot of, YouTube videos.
That's dedication.
Yes, yes.
Tremendous amount of those. Trial and error. There may have been some mica accidents where my poor little Chiweenie, who was white, has been walking around covered in sparkles and other colors because she ran across the table and hit something, and all of a sudden mica goes everywhere, and poor Penelope is now blue and pink. It looked like something out of like Sleeping Beauty. Make it blue, make it pink, and now she's both. Things like that have happened. So my house looks like a crafter's warehouse workshop.
Wow. I saw this look past Jan's face when you mentioned just type Faye into Etsy. I saw the look that said, as soon as we finish taping, she's going to type Faye into Etsy.
Yeah, they're taking notes. Taking notes on that one, trust me.
I'm figuring when Jan is back on the show with her next book, there's going to be some Etsy material in that screen. That's for sure. I think so.
Going to a conference in November where there's a cosplay day, and I went last year, and I did have a pair of wings, but they were small ones. They're like, kind of kiddie ones, basically, to be honest.
I'll tell you where to get
in the right iridescence, but I need massive ones. I want to knock people out with wings.
No problem. I got the girl. I got the hookup.
Thank you.
Wait, me next.
No, you got it. No problem.
I've only got some stuff. I need to, increase it.
I got
wings. For kid stuff, it's great. You need to get down with the kid stuff. I have swim fins for my shows.
You got it. I got a tail. I got everything.
Look.
Perfect.
Because they're in the book.
I love this.
They're swimming aids, and I walk on stage with a swim fin on, and everyone goes, "What?"
There you go. I can hook you up. I got fins. I got tail. I got it all. Don't worry about it.
All of those authors of, all those boring business books and everything else, they're saying, we don't get to dress up.
Anybody can dress up. You just got to find the right theme.
You just got to.
I love wearing my crown when I go to the book readings.
There's a crown is a necessity.
It is.
Every girl, to quote Lady Serena, every gal should wear a crown. Everybody needs one.
Need tiaras. Put one with me.
I need a tiara, folks. I don't have a tiara.
I know. I'm surprised at you. It's a fantasy
We got to get you one.
You got to come to one of my events. I hand them out to all the kids.
We'll hook you up.
Okay, I'm telling you, ladies, next time you have a book event, I expect an invitation, because obviously I love to travel. So I will go and get the tiara and everything else. I am right there about it.
We'll hook you up, Steph. No problem. We got that.
Fabulous. But what I love about this is, one of the questions people ask me all the time, and the three of you are kind of answering it a little bit here. Whenever people hear I'm a publisher, the first words they say are writer's block. What do you do about writer's block? And Well, I don't know. I can't picture the three of you ever having writer's block because you just kind of put on your tiara and go with it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
It just flows. Once there's a tiara on the head, the words just flow. Have any of you ever gotten stuck, or do you have an opposite problem? Do you have too many words and you need to cut some of them out?
Yeah, I have that problem. Because when you speak, I tend to write as I speak, which can be a bit too verbose sometimes. And then when you read it back, you go, my God, how many times did I put that in there? Or almost, or simply, or some other expression that you would just say when you're talking, but because it's coming out when you're typing, then you have to go back and remove all of those redundant words, and it is a nightmare. I don't have writer's block. I have issues the other way with too many words.
Yes, same problem.
Danielle,
I don't get writer's block per se in that sense. I say that now, knock on wood. I can get inspired by a lot of different things, but I remember being asked, "Oh, are you a pantser or a plotter?" And I remember, I think it was on your show actually, Steph, and I looked right at the camera thinking, I have no idea what those terms are. I just write, and then I put it all together at the end and hope and pray. I don't get really writer's block. It's making sense of it all at the end, and then realizing I love the word like that. And my characters all like to knit their eyebrows together. You know, it's like the same kind of movements that I'm like, oh, they shrug their shoulders a lot. Or yeah, you know, it's like I said, those redundancies.
Lips twitched up.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, the smile grew. And I'm like, okay, the smile's grown like 5 times in this paragraph, you know, and I'm like, that I got to go back and fix. The Emotional Thesaurus book helped me a lot.
I love that book. It's amazing, isn't it?
That should just be like tucked under my arm the rest of my life.
Yeah.
The Emotional Thesaurus book. Tell us about this Emotional Thesaurus book, Danielle.
Oh,
It's the greatest thing ever.
It's great. 1 second.
It's the greatest book ever.
Scotland. Going to get it.
You got it. Yeah.
If nobody's got this, if the top tip, folks, top tip.
Oh, I love this. I love
Yes.
this.
The Emotion Thesaurus. Okay, it works like a normal thesaurus, but basically if you want to know the kind of the tells of an emotion, and you're tired of using the same old phrases about, you know, oh, sure, I don't know, you know, you can repeat yourself a little bit too much, can't you? So just say, for example, your character is really, really angry, and you're tired of them clenching their fists. You go to your Emotion Thesaurus and you look up anger, and it will give you literally lists of different physical expressions of that emotion. So
Awesome.
I love that.
shrugging your shoulders.
Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many episodes of this show we've done, and no one has ever mentioned the Emotional Thesaurus. I love this.
Because it's in their back pocket and they're hiding it from everybody.
We don't tell anyone.
Exactly. That book has saved me many times. Everybody should, if you're an author, you should have that book by your computer, wherever. You should have it. It's just a necessity nowadays.
I don't know, Kimberly, are you and I going to have to hit, you know, the store right after the show?
I think I'm on my way.
She's in the car. Where do I get
I
this?
mean, you know, Google is our friend, but hey, you know, to have the actual, I love that.
It is different with kids' books though, because it is so pictorial as well. So that I will say there's a caveat there. And actually, when you're writing books, particularly for younger children, not as in teenagers, but more middle grade, I think you call it in America, they don't understand a lot of what you're describing and how it relates to an emotion. So with children's books, I do think you need to cap it somewhat and keep your phrases about what tells people have less. Adults understand it. Adults can read that language a lot better, but children are not so good at understanding a physicality.
But
as
I
adults.
It has to be more literal and more straightforward.
Which is why the illustrations play such a huge part in anything. Yeah.
But Kimberly, as a blogger, because when you blog, you're writing probably a lot about personal and emotional experiences, especially if you're a parent blog and you're writing to adults. I bet that emotional thesaurus would come in handy.
Oh yeah, especially because there's a lot of times where I have to remove myself from the situation to not have emotion so I can think about it in the most diplomatic way possible. Like, how can I describe this without pushing one way or the other, or to open up for more conversation and not be political about it.
I get that. Okay, so everybody who's watching, besides, of course, you have to buy everybody's book, is you need to buy an emotional thesaurus. So
Yes.
You can thank us later.
absolutely. So if I'm going with tip number 1 is cosplay, because obviously throwing a tiara on makes the words flow. That's what I'm learning here today, ladies, is dress the part and the words will flow. Tip number 2 is an emotional thesaurus. Who's got tip number 3 for all of our future writers out there? What should it be?
Do something that scares you.
Ooh, tell me about that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I've
That's
heard
a good
that
one.
before.
I think you should always do something that scares you just a little bit, because that puts you more into it. It takes you yourself out of the situation and injects that fear and reminds you of new emotions and brings them to the surface. So I think doing something that scares you just a little bit, and it doesn't mean go to a haunted house, it doesn't mean go bungee jumping, but just do something that reminds you of new experiences. I think that gives it a little bit of freshness. And I think that makes your writing a little more authentic and takes it out from always being your point of view. Because then things tend to be just exactly only what you think. And when you're writing, whether you're writing in the first person point of view or the omniscient point of view, which is what I do, and I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think it tends to then take you outside a little bit and push you outside your comfort zone, which I believe helps your writing. It adds that other texture, that other layer, and that other flavor that you need to help push your writing.
Wow, I really love that. Would you mind sharing something? And I'm going to ask the others, what have you done recently that was scary?
For me personally,
right now.
I mean, yeah, besides this, I dress up as a fairy, and go on podcasts. But besides that, I mean, some people will be like, oh, that's Danielle every day. There's nothing scary about that.
Point, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out, that we're here. That's,
we're here doing this. I know for me, my second book, Thine Eyes of Mercy, takes place, believe it or not, after the Tudors, in between Elizabethan and after Henry, when Queen Mary takes over.
That's the
And
same as
I
my
had
book
to go
too.
and take, I thought you'd like that. I had to go and take
Book 2
Tudor
of mine is
etiquette classes.
1553.
Because I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff on Henry. There's a bunch of stuff on Elizabeth, but the time for Mary, there's history stuff, but there's not a lot about what went on.
You and I got to
took
talk.
a Tudor etiquette class. And
Cool.
just going back and being like, hi, I'm an American learning Tudor etiquette, and then writing about it as an American with no real, I don't have a degree in history, or putting that in the book. It was scary because I was like, I'm going to get read for this. I'm going to get read for this. And there are people now who've come back and been like, you know what? You're right about this. You hit the nail on the head. Wow, they washed their hands. They had to all show washed their hands first before they sat at the table, and they did this, and wow, they carried their utensils around. There were little things. It was just scary to be like, I'm going to take another big leap, or even, to be honest, just publishing the second book after all the blasphemous stuff I got from the first book and being on blasphemy lists and people being like, I'm petitioning the Vatican to say to pull your book. And I'm like, it's a fantasy book. I was like, whoa. I was just put in the wrong category. And like by my first publisher, I was like, I didn't do anything. I'm like, to then say, I'm going to go forward and continue this series was just scary. And even switching publishers, those were all scary things. But then to then say, I'm going to do a second book, scary.
Yeah, very scary.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely.
There's a blasphemy list.
Yeah, apparently there are some blasphemy lists out there. I'm on 2.
I'm
going
so
for
in
a
trouble
3rd
then.
though.
My Catholic church is run by vampires, so I'm in trouble.
I'm going for a 3rd. I feel like 2 just wasn't enough. Let's go for 3. 3 strikes, you're out. You know? I got goals.
I didn't know about the emotional thesaurus. So I didn't know about the blasphemy list. This is a learning experience today.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious if I'm on it.
You know, the bad thing
Is it a good thing? Is it
all
like
gonna
being
consider
banned
it
book?
right.
You know, can it
I
actually
guess.
lead to more sales?
You
Right?
would think. Didn't go that way.
Maybe you need to go out there and shout about it a bit more and say, oh, my book got on the banned list.
I know, right?
That would get you some.
I'll work on that.
Advantage of that. Oh,
Right.
well. So Danielle has definitely been doing scary things with a plum, and Kimberly came on the show today. So there's that. What other scary things have we done? Chan, how about you? What have you done that's scary?
I did a thing. I'm doing a thing. I in November I flew out to Las Vegas. Just went to this conference with over 1,000 other authors. I've never been. It's quite funny actually because I used to run conferences for a living. I ran massive conferences for a living, but I've never been to one that was this big. And obviously, it's very different when you attend a conference to organizing a conference. I haven't actually attended a conference. I know that sounds really weird. So particularly because this was about writing. So I did a scary thing.
Good.
But it led to, because writers, we're kind of introverts most of the time, except when we're in character. That's completely different. But so I did the scary thing. The scary thing opened my eyes to other opportunities, other possibilities, other ways that I could write and do things. And in December, I saw a post, essentially. It was a post asking for people to apply to be a co-author with an award-winning historical thriller writer. And I was like, what? I write historical, so maybe. Anyway, so I applied and got shortlisted and then got accepted, which was awesome. And do you know what? Since about 4 weeks ago, I've been co-writing with a, let's be honest, more senior author than myself, with a much larger reach and very, well-established name, should we say. I can't tell you yet because we haven't signed a contract, which is really annoying, but we have been co-writing, which is just amazing. And it's in a completely, it's a similar genre because it is pure historical fiction rather than historical fantasy. So there's a lot more rules, a lot more research, and it's in a period of time that I didn't really I didn't know a lot about. I'm getting to learn a lot about it, which is great. I'm loving that. So yeah, I would say Danielle's point about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone can actually lead to something more exciting. Well, yeah, I did that, and it will lead to something more exciting. The book is over 50% done now, and I really feel like I've found a friend as well, which is nice. I've never co-written. In fact, none of my family have read my work. So, oh yeah, they know about it. My sister reads my books, but that's it. And it's kind of, they're just not interested. Not even my husband, who reads fantasy, which is quite annoying. I can tell you that much. Yes, but it's historical, so it's not interesting for him.
So
yeah, do something different and try it. You never know, you might like it. And you know what? I'm having an absolute ball. I'm getting on brilliantly with this. The words are flowing. I don't think I've ever written as much in a day as I am right now, because we're kind of firing off each other. It's great. Try something new. I practice it. I preach it in my books. Try something new today. I did. It's scary. You might get knocked back, but do you know what? At least you tried.
I think that's fabulous. Now, if we're talking about doing scary things and trying something new, Kimberly's in the car moving to Texas as we film here.
Yeah. I mean, moving to Texas in and of itself is facing some fear, some anxiety that's been coming up, but I know it's going to be great. Like, you know, we have to face our fears and have the most optimistic look at things that we possibly can. Or what are you going to do? Stay stagnant and get nothing accomplished ever? Like, you have to go and do something. And, you know, I mean, we're moving at the end of the month and I still have not signed for a place to live yet. So that's kind of scary. I've never had to do that before. But work is there. Everything else is prepared. I'm just doing every next thing and things will fall in line. And if you keep going.
Wow, that is scary. My gosh. But like you started with this, Danielle, by doing something scary, by putting yourself out there, by trying something new, it makes your writing more authentic. It makes it flow. It gives you new perspectives. Otherwise, we put ourselves in a box, don't we?
Yes, I think that we have to just move out of just our myopic point of view. So I think, you know, when we kind of do something different, push ourselves, it just gives it just that little degree change. And that can just open a door.
You actually say point of view there. That's another tip that is possibly useful for people that are suffering from writer's block. Try writing it from a different point of view.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be in the novel, because you may make that decision right at the beginning of your novel, which person you're going to do, third person, first person, etc. But when you do have writer's block, just flip it and write it from a different point of view, a different character, or write it literally in a different tense. Anything that just it's the same storyline, but someone else's viewpoint on it might change how it goes, and that might get over your block.
Oh, that's
I completely agree. I think as much as whether people agree with Twilight being a good book or a bad book, whatever, I think when Stephanie Meyers kind of gave you Edward's point of view, that changed the book for a lot of people. A lot of people who maybe didn't enjoy Twilight saw it from Edward's point of view. It changes the book completely.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes just doing that and looking at one of your characters and giving it a different point of view, I agree. It can sometimes give you a plot line you didn't see, or a subplot that maybe now you want to explore a little bit. And I think sometimes it's better to do that than to do writing by committee, where you start giving it out to people and you want to get their opinion. Because I think that you can lose your voice when you do that, and you start then questioning yourself too much as a writer, and you're like, okay, what do you think of this? And then everybody's got their opinion, and for some reason they all want to take ownership of the manuscript because they all think, I helped you with that, I helped you with this. And it's like, no, it's still my world. So I think sometimes, like you said, if you just change that point of view, it'll help you move on rather than do that writing by committee.
Yeah.
We have loads and loads of tips here, and the three of you are all busy on something already. I know Kimberly is busy with that devotion to getting that blog out, even when she's driving across the country, and a new children's book that's coming out this winter, right? The new one will be out before the winter. Jan, what's the next book?
Before winter.
Well, I've got my book 2 in the series sequence. It's the third novel, Anarchic Destiny, which is Queen Mary's time, 1553, 1554. It's actually, that's launching at the end of February, 28th of February. So that's pretty much locked and loaded now. And that follows the story of Henry Fitzroy, who Danielle may know was the bastard son of Henry VIII. Except in my world, he got made into a vampire. He didn't actually die at the age of 17. So yeah, he's a bit of I don't know. It's taking a risk. It's taking a risk. You've got to do it though, haven't you, for the story? He's very morally grey, very, and it turns out he's also gay, which leads to some interesting things happening. And there is kind of a love story in there as well, which I think is nice. Okay. So yeah, so that's an Arc of Destiny coming out at the end of February. But at the moment, I am writing this co-authoring book, which is set over the period World War II and the 1950s. So it's stretching probably a decade, but we're managing. We're working our way through those particular time hop issues that you have with historical fiction, and it's really exciting. It's
that's great.
It's a gritty storyline.
I'm excited for you. I want to hear who it is once you get that contract signed.
I know, right?
Thank you.
We all want to know. We all have to come back.
I'll come back and shout about it with her, and we can talk about co-authoring, and it'll be good.
Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And Danielle, what's on your hit parade for next book?
May 30th comes Kingdom Come, which is where I pretty much burn the veil down. Everything that has happened with Queen Mary reneging on her changeling contract with the Fae, what it has led to. That's all going to come to a head. The relationship between Jarbok and Aurora, everything that has happened, we will learn in Kingdom Come. I have finished my dragon novella finally. So hopefully that will be out maybe by the summer, give or take. And we are working on the Oracle card set. That should be out by the end of the year, give or take. And so we've got a couple irons in the fire, but the Kingdom Come cover will be the first cover that is featuring another Fae with me. So far, all the covers have featured myself and a dragon done by my dragon illustrator, Pandy Band. But this time it will be myself and our King Jarbok, who we found, who is a phenomenal actor, little Broadway actor, George, who is now going to law school. So yay, George. So we're very excited about that. And then I might even have some backstage pictures and things to show you about how that photo shoot went and the whole team. So I'd be excited to share that. But we're excited about Kingdom Come. This is the big change for the whole storyline. And it starts the end of the Veil arc before we do a time jump into the 21st century.
Fantastic. Well, we're definitely going to have to come back all together. We have to make sure Kimberly gets settled in and finds a place to live. We have to hear the mystery of the mystery writer with Jan. And follow the burning down of the Fae, but most especially get some more of these fantastic writing tips, because this was awesome. But I just want to remind our viewers of your books and websites so that they can head on over there. The Naturae series by Jan Foster. You can find her books all over, but escapeintoatale.com. Oh, I love that domain name. And I'm sure with any of these author websites, you can go there and sign up for mailing lists and news and keep up with what's going on. MyLegacyForChristopher.com is where you can find Kimberly Wilkerson, her Kingdom of Grace, and also her blog. So you can follow what's going on. If you follow, you'll find out about the move before anybody. And then finally, please visit birthofthefae.com. And Danielle Orsino's Birth of the Fae series is there. Locked Out of Heaven, Thine Eyes of Mercy, From the Ashes, and more is to come. You three are fabulous. I know I have to go shopping after this. I need a crown, I need a thesaurus, I need all sorts of things, but I mostly need you to promise that you're going to come back, because there's all sorts of good stuff happening. Is that a promise?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me between the covers, and happy writing. Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're an author who would be interested in appearing on our show, or perhaps you're a member of a book club, we do host book clubs as well, please visit betweenthecoverstv.com. By the way, at betweenthecoverstv.com, You can watch past episodes in addition to learning more about our authors and guests. So sign up there if you would like to be a guest on the show yourself. And if you have some books that you would like to get written or published, visit redpenguinbooks.com. Thanks so much for joining us.